In a sharply worded critique that has stirred political debate across Zambia, Patriotic Front (PF) Faction Secretary-General Raphael Nakasinda declared that casting a vote for President Hakainde Hichilema in the upcoming 2026 general elections would be tantamount to endangering the lives of Zambians. Speaking during a media interview, Nakasinda accused the United Party for National Development (UPND) administration of exacerbating poverty, undermining the rule of law, and fostering conditions that could lead to civil unrest. His remarks come in response to statements made by Home Affairs Minister Jack Mwembu, who had earlier urged citizens to support President Hichilema in 2026 to continue alleviating national challenges. Nakasinda's assertion reflects a broader narrative within PF ranks that portrays the current government as failing to deliver on its promises of economic reform, transparency, and inclusive governance. According to Nakasinda, the UPND's tenure has been marked by deteriorating living standards, rising inflation, and selective justice, factors he believes are pushing the country toward instability. He warned that if Hichilema remains in office beyond 2026, Zambia risks descending into chaos, driven by widespread disenchantment and institutional decay. This rhetoric is emblematic of the PF's strategic positioning ahead of the 2026 elections. Since its defeat in 2021, the party has sought to rebrand itself as the voice of the marginalized, leveraging grievances over economic hardship and perceived ethnic bias in government programs. PF leaders have repeatedly accused the UPND of favoring its strongholds in southern province, while neglecting regions traditionally aligned with the PF, such as Muchinga, northern, and eastern provinces. These claims have been amplified by reports of uneven distribution of agricultural inputs and development funds, which PF officials argue are being used as political tools to consolidate UPND support. The PF's messaging also taps into a sense of betrayal felt by segments of the electorate who had high hopes for Hichilema's presidency. Initially hailed as a reformist with a technocratic approach to governance, Hichilema's administration has faced mounting criticism over its handling of debt restructuring, fuel prices, and public sector employment. The rollback of campaign promises, particularly those related to youth empowerment and cost of living relief, has eroded public trust and given opposition parties fertile ground to mobilize discontent. Nakasinda's statement, while provocative, is part of a calculated effort to frame the 2026 election as a referendum on survival rather than policy. By equating a vote for Hichilema with a threat to national well-being, the PF aims to galvanize voters around a narrative of urgency and resistance. This strategy mirrors populist tactics seen in other African democracies, where opposition parties invoke existential stakes to rally support and delegitimize incumbents. However, the effectiveness of this approach depends on the PF's ability to present a credible alternative. The party remains fragmented, with internal disputes over leadership and direction. The return of former President Edgar Lungu to active politics has reignited debates about generational renewal and accountability within the PF. While Lungu retains a loyal base, critics argue that his comeback could hinder efforts to attract younger voters and reform-minded constituencies. Moreover, the PF faces challenges in rebuilding its organizational infrastructure, which was weakened during its time out of power. Unlike the UPND, which has maintained a robust grassroots presence, the PF must reinvest in local structures and re-establish its relevance in urban centers where political allegiances are increasingly fluid. The party's success will hinge on its ability to unify disparate factions, articulate a coherent policy platform, and engage voters beyond ethnic and regional lines. On the other side, the UPND continues to project confidence in its governance record, citing improvements in international relations, debt negotiations, and anti-corruption efforts. President Hichilema has positioned himself as a stabilizing force, emphasizing institutional reform and economic diplomacy. His administration has secured support from international partners, including the IMF and World Bank, which view Zambia as a model for fiscal discipline in the region. Yet, domestic sentiment remains mixed. While some applaud the government's efforts to restore macroeconomic stability, others argue that these gains have not translated into tangible benefits for ordinary citizens. The disconnect between elite narratives and grassroots realities poses a risk for the UPND, especially in rural areas where expectations for development remain unmet. As the 2026 elections approach, Zambia finds itself at a crossroads. The political discourse is increasingly polarized, with both major parties deploying emotionally charged language to sway public opinion. Nakasinda's claim that voting for Hichilema would kill Zambians is not merely hyperbole, it reflects a deeper anxiety about governance, equity, and national identity. It underscores the stakes of the upcoming vote, which will determine not only the country's leadership but also its trajectory in a volatile global environment. In this context, media scrutiny and civic engagement will be crucial. Journalists, analysts, and watchdog organizations must dissect political claims, verify facts, and provide citizens with the information needed to make informed choices. The role of independent media in countering propaganda and fostering dialogue cannot be overstated. As Zambia navigates this critical juncture, the integrity of its democratic institutions will depend on the resilience of its civil society and the vigilance of its electorate.